Policy advocacy is the practice to help people that cannot help themselves. Most of the time it involves helping people of the minority group. It is a very powerful thing, and it is associated with social welfare. There are 3 types of policy advocacy. The first one is micro-policy advocacy, which is sometimes called case advocacy or patient advocacy. It is to help people know that there are social programs available. Most of the time it involves helping people individually. With this advocacy, a social worker's job is to assist and enforce the fact that an individual is getting the medical care that they require, or any sort of care. The book uses an example of a homeless person going to an ED and how the social worker ethically has to make sure that the homeless person is not released before being medically stabilized, because without engaging, the person could be released in a dangerous environment, which could affect them negatively. Within this policy, social workers have a sort of practice called referrals. This helps the individual and motivates them to want to get better. Social workers give out information to services that will help the person. There are 2 types of referrals. They are called passive and active. With a passive referral, the social worker gives the individual access to help, but does not do any sort of follow-ups. With active, the social worker gives information and checks up on the individual to make sure that they are actually going out to get help. These are for more serious cases. There are 3 different types of situations that people face needing this policy. When people need benefits, services, and rights, but they're not available. Why aren't they available, you ask? Because the lack of resources or the lack of funding for the resources. The Great Depression was a great example for lack of resources. Second, when there are services, benefits, and the rights to which people are entitled to but denied. This is for like homeless people or just people that need all of these benefits but don't have the access to them. And then there's people who do not use the services, benefits, and rights for which they are eligible but that they need. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Some people are just unaware of all the resources that are available. It is the social worker's job to use micro-policy advocacy and let everyone know what their rights are. Meso-policy advocacy is for members of a community, and it helps to develop policies to improve the community. Social workers use this policy towards the companies that are over their employment. This sort of policy involves a team. The social worker proposes it, and then social workers try to make sure it gets done. The example of this advocacy would be Jane Addams and how she came up with the idea of whole houses. Whole houses were settlement houses that housed many immigrants in the late 19th century and early 20th century. It benefited many in a community. This policy is for benefiting a community of people. Lastly is macro-policy advocacy. This is when social workers work to legislate policies for all levels of the government and cover the funding. This policy is for making changes of public policy at all levels, including city, county, state, and federal levels. An example that shows this well that I saw in the book is social workers may work with all levels.